Hi, this is Denise Matthew. Hope you're doing well. I'm back again for another week of the transits. I'm doing it a little different this week because I have a bit of a cold and my voice is off, and I didn't really want to edit out all the times I was coughing in between doing the transits. So I'm doing it in a different way. Maybe some people will like it, maybe some won't, but you can give me your input, whatever you think. Well, we do have a few things happening this week. We have a new moon, and the other thing is that we are going to have a switch of energies sort of at the end of the week between the sun and the earth, and it's going to change the theme, and we're finally going to get out of the spleen and move on to new energy, as well as going into the last quarter of the mandala. So let's get into the transits. I did speak about the Gate 44 last week, so I'll touch on it again because we're going to have the Gate 44 in play until November 5th. The big deal that we can talk about when we're talking about the Gate 44, especially with the sun being there, is we always can think of the sun as being something that's an internalized thing that we might be thinking about. And then later on, when the earth goes through the same gate, so you could say when the sun goes through the Gate 44, you have the idea. And then when the earth goes through the Gate 44, when it completely switches around, then a lot of times we'll start to manifest what we want to do in the real world. That's not always the case, but I find a lot of ways it is. Now, there's one thing I can say about the Gate 44 is that I believe it's going to be quite prevalent for the rest of 2021 going into 2022, probably till about March. The reason why I say that is because right now, Uranus has switched back to the Gate 24 that it did last week, and it is actually going to be in opposition to the Gate 44 for the whole time it's transiting the Gate 24. What that means is that we have this great Gate 24, which is this awareness or this energy of trying to figure out the unknowable, trying to get answers to questions that really are almost unanswerable, but eventually we can get clarity. And if we think about the Gate 44, we're thinking about, to a degree, a messaging of sorts. This is where we're trying to get the new and improved version of something out to the tribe, you could say, because it is tribal energy. So it's this idea of packaging or making things more beautiful or trying to convince people that what they have now is not good enough and they need a new and improved version of that. It's the messaging, we could say. Now, in a big way, if anybody has watched the news and this whole thing with Facebook and its whole new name becoming Meta, that is the Gate 44 in play. And it really is this idea of, in some way, kind of making it new. And if you think about Uranus in opposition, like I said, Uranus is in the Gate 24. It's opposing the Gate 44 right now. So they're kind of working together. Uranus is kind of the boss of the internet, also boss of technology. And it's also the unexpected. So those are all the themes that we could think of when we're talking about Uranus. So this whole idea of a rebranding of Facebook, which is very much social media, internet based, really falls into the category of what the Gate 44 is actually talking about. And this whole idea of the old is not any good anymore. We need something new. And we could also be hearing a lot of this kind of talk of paradigm shifts and also this new world order that a lot of people have been saying and how things are going to change. And I do believe that this new moon that we're coming up to, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, is actually going to kind of have a little bit of a heralding in of really new energy that will probably start to shift a lot of things. The other thing we could talk about with the Gate 44 is that it is a fear gate, and we know that it's a fear of the past repeating. Now, from a global perspective, we could look at it as the past repeating as a tribal theme because the Gate 44 is tribal energy. Now, when we talk about tribal energy, there are three components that there's always a deep focus on. And one is that we have continuity, which means that everything keeps going the way it's going. We also need support, and we also need some form of material abundance. So then what we're talking about when we're talking about the fear is this idea of, are we actually going to a point of stagnation or a point where we're sort of slowing down again? And those are the fears that people have. Whether that's true or not is not actually what we're talking about, but there could be that potential to see the patterns repeating and to have an anxiety or a fear about what exactly it all means. We do know that next year when Pluto goes into the Gate 60, there will be some level of mutation and also a limitation. And we know that limitation and any type of individual energy like the Gate 60, it's all connected to this idea of how can we creatively use what we have in the moment so that we can continue to to move forward in life. And that's exactly what this energy is talking about. This is kind of saying, okay, we have some things that are just not looking good, and how are we going to change that, and what is the new pattern going to be? And we always know that the past does not always predict the future, but it can point directions or fingers to certain things and themes that might actually come into play. So it's just something to keep in mind and to really watch as everything unfolds. And the new moon will definitely be expanding on this whole theme. And one thing to keep in mind is that we know that the gate 24 is an awareness gate. So eventually we will get the awareness and the clarity, but we have to be aware, open, and kind of alert to what's going on. And really the gate 44 is all about alertness and being instinctively drawn and aware of the actual patterns that are changing. We know that the spleen is going to be our most reliable form of awareness, and we know that any of the gates that come out of the spleen are going to have some awareness, and that again is the gate 44. So it's pointing to the idea that we do have a couple of levels of awareness that are available to us. Like I said, if we're open and paying attention to what's happening all around us, then this can actually help with getting some clarity about where it's all going, what direction we're actually going in. Now, Mercury's in the gate 32, and it was last here from September 18th to October 5th. So we might be seeing some of the same themes that were happening at that time resurfacing, especially in your life. You could see things that were happening back then. And this is related to how we're successful, and sometimes the fact that we want to move and that we want to change our jobs, that we want to kind of get some level of success to climb the ladder so that we can get up the ladder of hierarchy, you could say, get further up in our career or whatever we want to do. And the fear here is always going to be this level of not being able to pursue what you want to do, to continue to move forward. And that's the whole key with any tribal energy. Like I said, this continuity. And if you're not moving forward, there's this feeling that maybe I'm actually not hitting the mark. I'm never going to get ahead. And those are the kind of themes that we could be seeing and people talking about, because it is Mercury. The key here is always to remember that a pause doesn't mean that you're completely stopping. That sometimes we have these pauses in life, you could say, and there are no way a failure, but there's just a lot of times that we have these pauses in our career. And what that's pointing out to us is this idea of how can we sort of start to think where we're going, what we want to change in the future, what is good, what is something that we don't want to do anymore. So it's a time of contemplation. And again, this is another awareness gate that is being activated, which means that the awareness is there to know what to continue to move forward with, what to change, and what to completely let go of. And for some people, it will mean that you're going to end a job or start a new job or look for a new job or something like that. And some people will look at their job that they have now and start to think of ways that you could up level it or make it something that is more palatable for you going in the future. Venus is in the gate 11, and it's really about this idea of being stimulated by things of a Venusian manner. And that's usually something that is kind of like a yin energy. That's things like good food, good sex, pleasurable things, and of course, kind of money as well. So we're talking about sort of wanting to find new and innovative ways to make money, we could say, or finding new ways to give some much needed tender loving care or pampering to ourselves that maybe we have put off. So we're starting to think about getting into things that make us feel good again. Or it could also be this idea of trying to get energy to start moving again. It could be a relationship that you're finding is stagnant and there's things that you're trying to do to make it more pleasurable or more stimulating so you have a better conversation or whatever that means to you. The other perspective is that this is a place for reflecting on the past, and it's about visual memory. So we could have this time of kind of remembering the things that we did in a Venusian manner. Remember the good old days when we used to do all these things and it was like fun, and we kind of went here and there. We went on vacations. And I guess this could be this idea of, we could even say, remembering the pre-pandemic days where we didn't need all these tests to go anywhere and masks were not a thing that we were required to wear. All the things that we took for granted in the past, we could be thinking about them and remembering them with some fond memories, we could say. Ultimately, this is all about having peace and having a peaceful experience. So not only having these memories, but feeling peaceful when we do have these memories. So that's the kind of energy that Venus is bringing to the table for the first part of the week. Mars has been in the gate 50 for a bit, and we talked about it quite a bit last week. And it's just this idea that we could be looking at people sort of rebelling against the rules and not really wanting to abide by the rules. And then we know that there's always going to be a duality with everything. The other perspective is standing firm with the rules, not wanting to bend, and kind of almost like this militaristic view of how things are supposed to be, and that we are meant to follow the rules, and we're meant to follow the laws. So there's a duality of how it's going to express itself. We could have the rebels on one side and also the people who want to uphold the laws, tell people what's going on, and maintain the values, the order, and the way things have always been done, we could say. And that's kind of the Martian way in a lot of ways. And then the other perspective is we could have people saying, no, we need change. We don't want to just be told what to do. We don't want these mandates that they're saying that we need to do. And we're just going to push against. And on November 3rd, we have Mars moving into the gate 28. If we look at Mars in the gate 28, we're looking at the gate of the game player. And if you think of Mars as a general or a strategic player of, actually, you could say a lot of things. Mars can be about the military. It can be about strategic planning and forcefully getting or taking what you want. And then on the other side, we could say it's fighting the good fight. And the gate 28 is really about having risks in our lives, or taking risks to find the meaning of why we're here. What's the point of being alive on Earth? What's the point of living? So in the highest form, the gate 28 is about taking the right risks and being strategic about the risks that you take. So eventually the risks will actually pay off. And if you think about Mars in this energy and the strategy of Mars, it would be this idea of fighting to live and fighting for your life, and seeing that Mars could actually be giving us a boost to keep going, you could say, keep going through the struggles, keep pushing forward, and to actually fight for our lives and our incarnations and what we believe our whole meaning and life purpose is actually. On November 4th, we have the new moon, and quite a few things are happening. It's interesting because it's a new moon that's happening in Scorpio, and it's also happening in the gate 44, line 6. So we know that the gate 44 is the end of a quarter, the quarter of duality, where we've been sort of traveling for the last couple of months. And now we're moving into the last quarter of the full mandala, which is the quarter of mutation. And Ra'uruhu said that this quarter is a quarter where anything can really happen. And we know that it is about mutation and transformation. So it's a time of new mutations, new things trying to make their space in the world. And we know that all mutations don't actually get to the next level. And that's the whole thing. So we're thinking about, we have new things, new ideas, new mutations, new concepts coming in and trying to make their place, you could say, in the collective. And how many of them will actually get put in the collective and how many will just fizzle out. So that's what the whole quarter of mutation and transformation actually talks to. If you look at it as a fourth quarter, we could also look at it as things coming to a close, because we're going to have the first quarter that begins in January, where we begin again and we start the whole mandala over again. And we start with the gate 41, which is an initiating codon. This new moon really does talk about a transition of energy. And I think it's going to be impactful because when we think about the 6-line energy, we always know that that's going to be a line of transition where we're really moving from one theme to another. We're moving out of the fears of the spleen and we're moving into the yangest energy, which is the gate 1. And that's the gate of the creative. Now, this is an expression of the self. So we're talking about a lot of individual energy. Now, if we go back to the 44 line 6, this is talking about the idea of the standard hierarchy or the foundation that society has been built on not being okay anymore, not being worth it anymore, not being suitable for everybody, and that things have to change. So we could point at a lot of the concepts that we've seen a lot of talk about, a lot of the ultra rich or the super rich who are being featured a lot more in the news now, especially where there was the release of the Pandora Papers earlier in the month of October. It was uncovered how many very wealthy people avoid paying taxes and sort of the way they go about it. So these are the kind of themes that are activated within the collective, and they are becoming sort of, you can't ignore it. This new moon talks about the disparity of the classes, you could say, and it's pushing for what we could call a new paradigm and something more balanced for all. that's that concept of everybody needs to be supported. It's tribal energy. We all need to have a piece of the pie. It doesn't always have to be the exact same size, but to have somebody have almost the whole pie and then you have like a micro-sized piece for everybody else is kind of an imbalance that's been going on for a while that is really being highlighted right now. And in connection to the last full moon that we had, this idea of the 6124 and how it was activating a quantum, and talking about the idea of listening to our own inner truth and not actually always relying on other people to give us the facts that we want, to do our own research to decide what works for us. And if somebody's word actually works for us, that's fine. But if it doesn't, then we have a right to look for ourselves, to find the answers that are true for us, to be aware, to watch, listen, and to see how things unfold. Because right now there's going to be potential to see a lot of things that are going to show up. This new moon has a potential to heighten our intuition, to show us the things, the patterns that are showing us something that might be coming in the future. It doesn't mean we'll know exactly, but it actually will give us potential to look at the patterns and see what they're actually saying to us. And then if we have the background frequency of the nodes, the 3420, that's talking about being in the present moment amidst the busyness of life all around us, to take a step back, to see what's going on, and to be able to make our own decisions based on what we actually see. So the key themes are to listen to your own inner truth, to watch for signs and symbols and what they mean to you, and to know that change is coming and you're basically prepared when it does come. The same day as the new moon, Venus moves into the gate 10, and this is a love gate. When it does move into the gate 10, it's going to activate a few channels of the integration circuit. So it's going to add to the energy of the 2034, and it's going to bring the channel, the 1034, which is all about individual energy, and it's all about following your own lead and conviction. And that just is another layer of this idea of listening to what is right for you, listening to your own inner voice that we're talking about when we're talking about the new moon. It also is going to bring the 2010, and that's all about this idea of how we can awaken through self-discovery, and it's self-discovery in the present moments. So once again, we're talking about being in the present moment, having an alertness to what's happening in your sphere, you could say, and preparing for the future based on what you're seeing. The gate 10 is also one of the love gates, and this is about the love of self. And when you feel empowered by the love of who you are and being exactly who you are and expressing yourself and your individuality authentically, then you're naturally empowered. And when you're empowered, then your aura gives off an energy that it can empower other people around you. This is also about finding the spirit of humanity. So not only are we connecting with the love of ourselves, but we're also connecting with the love of humanity as well. Venus there, we could see it manifesting as a feminine or yin energy, and it's about being ourselves, and also in relationships, being ourselves within relationships and showing exactly who we are and being okay with being in some way vulnerable to be able to express authentically the truth of who we are. Mercury also moves on November 4th, and that's where it finally comes out of shadow. And when we talk about shadow, it means that Mercury transited over the same specific gates for quite a while because of the retrograde, and now it's finally going into new territory where it hasn't been since last year, you could say. It's going into the gate 50. We've already had the sun and also Mars move through the gate 50, so that energy is familiar. We've talked a lot about it. With Mercury here, there could be more of a verbal talking about it. We could hear about it in the media, this idea that people want to change the rules and potentially rebel. Or the other idea is the duality, is people want to uphold the rules and basically keep the status quo. It just feels more of this push against the mandates and the way that the higher ups have been trying to enforce certain rules upon the collective, whether they want them or not. On November 5th, we have the sun and the earth moving. The sun's going to be moving into the gate 1, and the earth's going to be going into the gate 2. Now, the gate 1 is one of the yangest energies that we know, and that's all about being ourselves and a creative expression of who we are. And this is part of the energy of the creative role model. This is about something where we're expressing ourselves uniquely. And the creativity that comes within this energy is always something that is without limits, we could say. This expression of our self and our creativity and who we are is about our individuality. It's never about being the best at anything. It's about being the best version of who we are. And when we're being the best version of who we are and expressing it to the world, then that's when we can be seen and recognized, because this is a half of a projected channel where we can be seen and recognized for exactly what we can bring to the collective. The mutation, because again, this is individual energy, the mutation we can bring to the collective that is specific and unique to who you are. And with the Earth in the Gate 2, which is exactly the opposite of the Gate 1, this is the Yinus energy. There's this need to potentially start to move in a new direction, or maybe continue in the same direction we've been going, but maybe to change it a little bit. This is also a place where the theoretical magnetic monopole, or our life purpose, or the trajectory that keeps us on the path to where we're meant to go in life is said to be. If someone has a Gate 14 hanging, this is going to give you direction to where you want to put all that energy that comes with the Gate 14. This would be like the pedal that's going to get things moving, and potentially there could be some good moments of things happening, or good luck moments, you could say, that would happen if you have the hanging Gate 14. For the rest of us, it is this idea of kind of grounding into the direction of where we want to go, where we want to put the pedal to the metal, you could say, going into the future. And it is directing our individuality, because again, this is individual energy as well, directing our individuality in a place where we feel that we're going to make the most impact on the collective. And this actually doesn't happen until next week on November 10th, but I just thought I'd mention it again because this is potentially going to ramp up the energy, the emotional energy, or the emotional tribal energy that we could say has been a slow burn. And if we go back to the tribal themes, the three focuses are abundance, support, and also this idea of continuity or moving forward. Now, if we feel that this is not happening, this is when we're going to have this pushback. And a lot of people feel like things are not going correctly. They're not moving forward. They're not being served the way they feel they should be. Things have to change. There's sensitivity within this energy as well, which means that the sensitivity is saying, I need to be supported. I need to be taken care of. I will support you to move forward and revolt against what is, so that we can have something better in the future. And that really does play into this idea of the new moon heralding in new energy that is talking about people wanting change and not holding back, wanting the change, wanting action. And this is the idea of an emotional component that is added to the mix that ramps up the energy, where people are tired of being told one thing and it never happening. This is also the idea of if you're in a relationship and you just don't feel like you're being supported, or the other opposite is being in a relationship and feeling that you don't have somebody who is standing on their own 2 feet and they're always needing you to do everything for them. Then this could be where you start to say, okay, this is not working for me. Changes need to be made. Either way, potentially you could heal the relationship, or you could break the relationship, or you could make the relationship even stronger because you're working on it together. So it does talk a lot about relationship energy as much as it talks about this idea of needing to have support. And whenever we're talking about the 1949, there is always going to be a yin and a yang. I give you this and you give me that, because it is tribal energy. So there has to be a balance within the relationship most times for everybody to be happy. And that's all for the transits, and I hope you have a good week, and I will see you again next week. Take care. Bye for now.